So why don't you start off by just telling us who you are, how you got started, and how we ended up with Fogbound.
Man, you might be in for a longer answer than you were expecting for this
Perfect.
one. So again, my name is NJ Alexander. I'm also go by Nick. Refer to me as either one. And Fogbound is an epic fantasy novel, and it stars a school teacher who is under the unfortunate circumstance of being under mind control from a long-dead legendary hero, and is now forced off to war, where he will do battle for both his homeland and his own mind. How this got started, Fogbound was not like this many, many years ago. I got my start on this very same book around 2011-ish is when I would say I really first started this. It was an entirely different book. And I, unfortunately, fell victim to a vanity press when I was about 18, 19 years old, and published the original version of Fogbound, which looked nothing like this.
Yeah.
And as you can imagine, me being 19 and me falling victim to a vanity press, it was not good. I still have some old copies of that book lying around. Fogbound is actually me taking that book, unpublishing it, and ripping it to shreds, essentially. The bones are still kind of there from that very first book I wrote when I was young. I've added a lot to it. For some specifics, the original book was 78,000 words. I deleted about 40,000 of them and wrote it up to about 115,000. And that is the Fogbound we have today. It came out in 2023 as sort of a relaunch. I called it my re-debut at the time. Technically not my debut, I guess, but I did it again. So yeah. We called it the re-debut. And, best part about it is I finally have a book that I'm very proud to say that my name is on. That first book, the first time I did it, I've gone back and read some parts, especially when I was doing the heavy editing, right? And I was like, man, how the hell did I put my name on this? How did I put this out? So I'm just happy to have this book here. Is it a perfect book by any means? I mean, is any book really? But it's, it's great. It's my debut, and I love it to pieces.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's interesting. So I definitely want to get to Fogbound and stuff, but I do want to ask you about, because I think that's something I've never really explored before, the Vanity Press thing. How did that happen? And then I guess, do you have any advice for people, indie authors out there working with that?
Yeah. So first I'll say I'm very open about my experiences back when I was a teenager. So if any indie author has either A, fallen victim to a vanity press, or B, is like being hounded by vanity presses, doesn't know what to do, they can always reach out to me. I'm happy to answer. I've had a few indie authors actually reach out to me about this over the course of a couple years as I've told the story on podcasts and whatnot. So way back when, 2010, 2011, 2012, indie self-publishing scene there wasn't as much information about it as there is now.
Sure.
Right? And well, I say that I also could be wrong, and I was just a dumb kid. Either one of those could be true. But I do think it's easier to find good information now about reputable presses, about whether it's a small press or how to go about it yourself, like through self-publishing. So what happened was I was really just researching the publishing process. I had written the first draft of what is now Fogbound, that horrible book that I published when I was 18, 19. And I thought, okay, so I wrote the rough draft. How do I go about publishing this thing? I was doing some Googling. I filled out, I have some memory of filling out a form. It wasn't on the Vanity Press's website. It was some web form somewhere. And a few weeks later, I was contacted by the Vanity Press Ex Libris. They're quite popular. If you're pretty well versed in the publishing industry, you may have heard of them. They're a very well-known vanity press. They contacted me and said, hey, we'll edit your book. We'll give you a cover. We'll market it for you, put it on Amazon, give you a Library of Congress number, blah, 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 all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, this sounds awesome. This sounds amazing. And so I signed a contract with them to publish the book. And if anyone doesn't know, a vanity press charges money to publish. So I paid them money. I don't remember what it was anymore. It wasn't cheap, I'll tell you that much. it was probably in the realm of $1,500 to do all that.
Mm-hmm.
Which you might be thinking to yourself, that sounds pretty cheap because, getting cover art, getting editing done, it's going to cost you about the same amount if you were to hire freelancers to do it, maybe even a little bit more. But let me tell you, the edit to that first book, it sucked. Maybe back then I thought it was good, but I read it when I was redoing it to rewrite Fogbound. And I'm like, what the hell did they even do? Did they even edit this? What is going? So it's really just a scam. But me being dumb and me being very excited about having a book out, for what it's worth, the book did come out. It was on Amazon. They sent me like 100 complimentary copies of it. I had physical copies of a book, including hardcovers, and it was pretty cool to see my name on something. It was only when I got a little older, started writing more books, like the sequel to that book and then the book after it, that I really started to realize maybe I made a mistake signing a contract. Because I should say I signed the contract for 3 of them. So I'm like, maybe I made a mistake here. So the funny part of it, the easiest part was canceling the contract with them is super simple. They already got my money. They didn't give a crap about what I did. I just sent them an email and said, hey, can you unpublish this? I'd like just take it offline. They said, yep, here you go. And here's all the materials we did for you. I was like, okay,
done.
Yep, all set. I was like, okay, well, that was pretty easy. I thought it would be some long drawn out process because everything with them was long and drawn out. Also, I should say too, my book was really expensive. Like it was, it was 78,000 words, probably like 300 pages or something. And the paperback was close to $20 and I couldn't change that. I'm like, that just seemed really expensive to me. And now, of course, I know more about it. Yeah, that's really freaking expensive. So that was another part, too, that I did not know up front how much the book would cost, and they would not change the price. So that's another particularly bad part of it. But anyway, so I got out of the contract in 2020, or maybe late 2019. And that's when I really started the rewrite process in earnest. They gave me full permission to use the cover art that they had made for me and everything like that. But then I said, you know what? I think I need a clean break. I'm going to retitle the book, give myself a new pen name, and just start from scratch. So that's basically what I did. I didn't use anything they sent me, except for my whatever draft it was they edited.
Yeah.
And just used that to make an entirely new book and did everything else from scratch.
Yeah. Well, it's great that you're talking about it because it's a cautionary tale for sure of, there's always people out there that are willing to take advantage of stuff. And so, that's just crazy.
I mean, today it's a lot. I think it's a lot harder to fall victim to a vanity press because of all the information out there.
Yeah.
And, I'll leave it at that. It's a lot harder to fall for one. My rule of thumb is if a publisher wants to charge you money to publish the book, run.
Yeah.
You can pay freelancers to do this stuff for you. One, it's more rewarding.
Yeah.
You help out the indie community by hiring a freelance artist, freelance editor, all that. Of course, you have to pick and choose carefully when you do that, but it's more rewarding and it benefits the community more if you just hire a freelancer versus doing what a 19-year-old NJ, not NJ Alexander at that point, but what 19-year-old me did.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so interesting that I would agree with you that there's definitely, I think it's easier to self-publish now and there is more information. So, while you may have been a kid, I do think it's still easier now for sure. And I think it's there's so many more people doing it that there's a lot more people to ask.
Yes, that's 100% true. And use that experience as like I like to help people. Especially like young writers who are just starting, maybe they want to write a book, maybe they've written a book and they need help. I don't know. Sure, it cost me a lot of money back then. And maybe it was a mistake, but it's a learning experience. And I try to use my platform to caution people about it too.